What is up? Coach Emma here, and welcome back to the Fit Habit Life podcast, where we cut through the noise, talk real health and fitness, sustainable fat loss, and habits that actually work. And today on the podcast, I will be your quote-unquote fitness and nutrition glossary. Or dictionary. Dictionary? Yeah. I'm going to define common terms that are used online that someone just getting into the health and fitness space might not know. Because I didn't know these until I started digging in. And oftentimes I use these words and my clients ask, like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, I live in the space. I talk to people in the space. These words are common to me, but most people don't know what they are right off the bat. And if you do, kudos to you. If you're new to working out, you just started a fat loss journey, or you're just haven't heard these words before, hopefully it provides you with some value and maybe gives you some insight onto what people have been saying online. So anyway, just wanted to do this. I have new clients starting, so I thought it would be helpful in case I decide to use any of these words. And yeah. So anyway, before I dig in, just wanted to thank you for listening. If you're here, that means a lot to me. And that means a lot to you because that means you're interested in prioritizing your health, which is super awesome. So kudos to you. I'm excited to have you listening to me. And if you've listened in the past and it provides you with some type of value, it'd be really awesome if you could rate the show or share it with some friends who might need it. And it just helps me get in front of more people, debunk crap that's out there, and just help more people. Really, that's the goal of this show. So anyway, let's dig in. So I've decided to split it up into two categories, essentially nutrition terms and then fitness terms in general. So I'm going to start with nutrition. And if at the end of the episode you're like, hey, you did not describe what this term is, or I have a question on this term, just shoot me a message. I'd be happy to give you some insight on it, and maybe I'll do another one if I get enough. And there was like a bunch that I missed. But anyway, let's dig in. Okay, so the first term is TDEE, and TDEE stands for Total Daily Energy Expenditure. So essentially what that is the amount of calories that your body burns just throughout the day. And that includes, it's kind of like a compilation of 4 different things, which I will also describe. So it includes your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate, which is the calories your body burns at rest to just function. NEAT, which is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is the amount of energy that you burn throughout the day through daily movement, which is like fidgeting, just walking, doing the laundry, gardening, doing the dishes, that sort of stuff. Then there's EAT, which is exercise activity thermogenesis, which is the amount of calories that you burn while you're exercising. And then there's TEF, which is the thermic effect of food. Basically, digesting food is effort for your body, and so it does burn calories. What's kind of cool is that protein, which in my opinion is the tastiest macronutrient, it's a lot of effort for your body to digest, and so it actually burns the most amount of calories per macronutrient, which I will be defining here shortly. So TDEE, total daily energy expenditure, basically the amount of calories your body burns at rest, and it is comprised of your BMR, your NEAT, your EAT, and your TEF. So your basal metabolic rate, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and your exercise activity thermogenesis, and thermic effect of food. So basically the amount of calories it takes to break down the food that you're consuming. Okay, that's a mouthful. I'll try to have some good notes for this episode. Okay, next, calorie. I feel like that's a pretty common word, so I will define it because I've been using it, and if you aren't sure what that is, totally fine. I did not know what it was when I first started my fitness journey. But calorie is basically the unit of energy in food. So it's the energy, it's just a way to measure the energy we get from food. And so, right, the total daily energy expenditure, that uses calories as a way to measure what your body's burning and that sort of thing. So anyway, I did touch on macronutrients. So what is a macronutrient? Macronutrient are proteins, carbs, and fats, which are the nutrients your body needs in large amounts. I'd also kind of add in fiber. Fiber is technically a carbohydrate, so it's a type of carb, but it is worth being aware of on its own. And you can kind of add in alcohol as well. So proteins are very important for muscle building and recovery. Everything in your body is made of protein. Your skin, hair, muscle tissue, eyelashes, eyes, teeth, everything's made up of protein. And then carbs. Carbs are very essential for performance. They're your body's preferred fuel source. Carbohydrates, common carbohydrates are rice, pasta, potatoes, fruits, vegetables. Fiber is a carb that our body does not digest, so it actually helps with your bowel movements and just in general your gut health. So it's very important. It also helps with fullness. So another word I wanted to define was satiety. I use that word a lot, and satiety basically means fullness. So fiber and protein keep you satiated. Satiated is, I guess, I forgot grammar terms. I think it's an adjective. Or, I am satiated. Yeah, it's an adjective. It's an adjective. So satiety is a noun because it's the feeling of being full. And satiated is an adjective because that is something that you're physically feeling. It's like describing you. Anyway, proteins are like, for the most part, animal proteins, a lot of dairy sources, or animal meats. A lot of dairy sources have protein, like Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, milk. Okay, and then fats. Fats are things like butter, olive oil. They're very important macronutrients for your body because fats are really important for overall hormonal health and absorbing nutrients. So your body needs a baseline amount of that daily. So those are the macronutrients. And then alcohol technically is as well because it's a lot more effort for your body to break down than a carbohydrate. So it actually is 7 calories per gram of effort to break down versus fats are 9 and carbs and proteins are 4. But as I touched on before, TEF, the thermic effect of food, proteins are actually about like 3.2 calories per gram because of the amount of effort that it takes for your body to break that down. So, fun fact. Anyway, next, micronutrients. Micronutrients are the vitamins and minerals that your body needs in small amounts, micro. So, most food has them. I'm not going to dig into the nuances. I feel like the micronutrients in general, you need like a book on it because it's hard to describe each one, but there's a variety of different vitamins and minerals, and your body needs them to function optimally as well. So now, fun terms that are kind of describe the manipulation of calories. So what is a cut? A cut is intentionally eating less to burn body fat. So if you commonly hear like bodybuilders, I'm on a cut and I'm doing this thing, it's like they're eating less food than their maintenance calories. Maintenance calories is your average total daily energy expenditure that you need to consume in order to stay the same weight. So that's another word. And so in a cut, you go below your maintenance calories to burn body fat. A bulk is intentionally eating more calories to build muscle. There's a right way and wrong way to do it. If you're not sure, if you listened to 2 episodes ago, episode 56, I have Laura Savino on my podcast, and we talk about how to bulk properly, specifically geared towards women, but honestly, it's the same thing for men. Men just might be able to get away with eating more calories than women without having as much body fat gain. So that's what a cut, bulk, and maintenance are. And then deficit, you might hear commonly calorie deficit. Basically, that's the same thing as a cut. It's just eating less calories than your body burns so that you can lose weight. A surplus is the same thing as a bulk. It's eating more calories than you burn. But I guess technically, you might not be trying to bulk if you're in a surplus, because bulking signifies trying to build muscle. For the most part, most people in the fitness space want to build muscle, burn body fat. So if somebody says I'm bulking, they're usually not intentionally trying to add on excessive body fat. Sometimes I have clients come to me and they are eating in a surplus. So they're eating more than their body's burning, which is why they're putting on weight. If you're eating in a deficit, you're eating less calories than your body's burning, and that might not be intentional. That is also a thing. So the cut and bulk, the difference between cut and bulk and deficit and surplus is cut and bulk are intentional, and deficit and surplus might not be. Because you could be intentionally going in a calorie deficit or a calorie surplus, but there are a lot of people who are not. And so that's when you would use deficit and surplus versus cut and bulk. Hopefully that's not confusing. Then reverse dieting. So I'm actually going to do a deep dive episode on what it is and how to do it properly, because there is some misinformation out there on how to actually reverse diet. I don't really like the term misinformation. There is just information that is not accurate that is out there that people do think is accurate. It's like they're trying to help and they think it's accurate, but it's not accurate. And so I wanted to just do a deep dive on it, when you would actually want to do it. Do you need to do it? What it actually is, and how to successfully implement a reverse diet. So a reverse diet, usually what that looks like is after a diet where you've reduced your calories, you slowly increase your calories by 50 to 100 week over week to try to get back to a healthy maintenance range. And you usually use it to try to find your top end of maintenance. Because if you can maintain your weight at 2,200 or 2,500 calories, wouldn't you rather be eating 2,500 calories a day? Because I would. The more food I can eat, the better. So the point of the reverse diet is really to find that top end of maintenance. And oftentimes I'll use it with clients whose calories are really low when they start working with me. But either they don't know that we're doing it, or so it's kind of sneaky, or it's like I intentionally describe it to them if they're tracking their macros, because I have some clients who aren't tracking their macros, and it's like we're just adding in protein and fiber and making sure that they're eating more complete meals, and we're also increasing their movement, starting them on a strength training routine, and so essentially we're bumping their calories slowly over time. And they're building muscle and burning body fat. And so that's usually what happens, especially people who have been chronically dieting for a long time. Their maintenance calories are really low. So doing a reverse diet is kind of like getting them into a bulk without telling them they're bulking, and building up their maintenance calories to a more sustainable place. And then from there, right, it'll be easier to help them lose that body fat. So anyway, I will do a deep dive on that. I kind of probably talked a little bit too much about that one. But anyway, yes. And tracking macros, what is that? So it's like tracking your calories, but you're also paying attention to your proteins, carbs, and fats, and usually fiber. So it's like you're trying to hit those specific macronutrients so that you're essentially, like, trying to give a good example. You can track your calories and lose weight, but if you're not eating enough protein, you will probably lose some muscle mass. And so tracking macros allows us to be more specific with, the types of foods that you are eating and making sure your body's getting enough of the macro and micronutrients that your body needs. So anyway, tracking macros is paying attention to your protein, carb, and fat intake, as well as the calories and the fiber. Okay, those were the nutrition terms. Again, any terms I forgot, let me know. And I'd be more than happy to do another episode of more advanced terms. You can just hit me up on Instagram. But now I'm going to dig into the fitness terms. So specifically with regards to like training, fitness is very broad, but I'm meaning more specific like strength training terms or lifting terms that you might hear on the internet. Be like, what is that? I'm not sure. Or maybe I describe something to you and you're like, Coach, I don't know what that is. So anyway, let's dig in. Okay, number 1, progressive overload. And I kind of touched on this in episode 55, I believe, when I talked about the proper way to strength train. But essentially what progressively overloading is increasing the stress on your body so that your body can adapt. But more specifically, it's like increasing the weight, increasing the reps, increasing the difficulty or time under tension in order to elicit an adaptation. Usually that adaptation, the goal is hypertrophy, which I will also define. Hypertrophy is muscle growth. So usually with strength training, the goal is to build muscle, burn body fat. So you progressively overload the muscle tissue to elicit an adaptation so your body builds more muscle. Boom. Now you know what progressive overload and hypertrophy are. Now you're wondering, what is a rep, Emma? Well, a rep is one complete movement of an exercise. So if you're doing a set of squats, let's say, it makes it more confusing. Okay, let's say your coach gives you 3 sets of 8 squats. 3 sets of 8 reps. So that means for each set, so you do 3 rounds of the exercise, and for each round, so a set is a round, for each round, you do 8 repetitions. So a rep is short for repetitions, and so that means you're performing the movement 8 times. So if you had 3 sets of 8 squats, you're doing 8 squats, 8 complete squats for each set. Now you know what a set and a rep are. Okay. What is failure? Training to failure. Training to failure is doing reps until you can't complete another rep with good form. And I specify good form because if me, as your coach, I'm telling you go to failure, I do not want you to compromise your form in order to get another rep. That can cause injury, pain. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Whereas, let's say you're doing, like today I was doing deadlifts and I could have probably inched the weight up, but I would have compromised my form. So I only did 1 rep with the weight instead of 2. So I did it to failure because had I tried to do another rep of the exercise, I might have been able to, but my form would have been off and that could have put me in a compromising position. So failure is doing reps until you can't complete another one with good form. What is volume? People talk about volume. People talk about intensity. What does that mean? So volume is the total work done in the workout. So it's sets times reps times weight. That's what volume is. Intensity. Intensity is how difficult the effort is for you relative to your max weight. And so there's different ways to measure it, but usually I don't prescribe. I'm not a powerlifting coach. I'm not a like Olympic lifting coach. Usually they give their clients a percentage of weight from their 1 rep max to do for the set. I do not do that. So usually by intensity, it's just how much are you pushing, like on a scale of 1 to 10. But anyway, okay, next. 1 RM, 1 rep max. What does that mean? That is the heaviest weight you can lift of 1 rep of one exercise. So one of the most common things that test this is powerlifting. So powerlifting is, right, you're testing your bench 1 rep max, your squat 1 rep max, and your deadlift 1 rep max, and comparing it to other people. So most people at the gym don't do this. And there really isn't a lot of value unless you think it's fun or you want to compete in it. So oftentimes I don't really have my clients do this. I might do a competition once a year where everybody from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, we want to measure our 1 rep max of an exercise just to see like, hey, how did you progress this year, right? But usually don't program that in. Okay, so compound lift. I say this a lot, and I realized in episode 55, I said this quite a bit about strength training and compound exercise. Basically, what a compound exercise is it works multiple muscle groups at once. And so for most of my clients, I prioritize these because you can get the biggest bang for your buck. You don't have to spend as much time in the gym. And so an example of this would be powerlifting moves, the squat. The squat doesn't just work your quads, it works your glutes, hamstrings. Your glutes are your butt muscles. Hamstrings are, most people know what that is, I'd say. They're behind the front of your legs. Quads are the front of your legs above the knee. They also work your calves and your core and your back. So it's like compound, right? You're using multiple muscle groups. Same with bench. Bench isn't just chest. It uses chest, core. If you're benching like a power lifter, you're probably using your glutes and your legs, your quads as well. And you're using your triceps and your shoulders. And a bunch of little tiny stabilizer muscles as well. And the deadlift, same thing. Deadlift is not just back and hamstrings and glutes. It is also an isometric. And an isometric is a type of exercise where your muscle is not moving, but it's holding on or pushing against an immovable force. So like a deadlift is an isometric because your arm, for a bicep, because your arm is straight, but your arm is holding the weight and the weight is pulling down on your bicep and your bicep is holding it up. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh, and I did not add that to the list. Okay. But yeah, so now you understand what a compound exercise is and isometric. So there are two other, well, I guess technically 3. So besides isometric, there's also concentric, and these are the types of forces on the muscle. So concentric is when you contract a muscle. So it's when the muscle shortens under tension. Eccentric is when the muscle lengthens under tension. Then the isometric, as I touched on, that's when the muscle contracts but doesn't change length, right? So when you're holding the barbell on a deadlift, your bicep is not changing length, but it's working. And then isokinetic is the 4th one, but it's kind of more advanced and it's not really utilized and it's hard to replicate in the gym. but it's essentially when the muscle contracts at a constant speed throughout the movement. So it's usually only used in rehab settings. So I don't want to dig into that. And I'm not a professional on that, so that is not something I'm comfortable talking in great lengths about. But anyway, so now you know the different types of muscle actions. And then isolation. So we talked about compound exercises. So what are isolation exercises? So isolation exercises are exercises that target one specific muscle group. So most commonly, these are machine exercises at the gym. So compound exercises usually use the barbell, dumbbells, body weight, but isolation is more usually used for like biceps, triceps. If you're specifically trying to target your legs, like specific muscle groups, like a calf raise for the calves, or a leg extension or leg curl for the quads or the hamstrings, like a bicep curl machine, tricep push down, those are more like isolation exercises where you're not using a lot of other muscle groups, you're specifically targeting one. And this is what most people do in the gym, which is why they think they have to spend that much time in the gym. But you don't if you use the main bulk of your workout is like compound movements, and then you just add a couple isolation exercises for specific muscle groups you'd like to focus on, or muscle groups that weren't as directly targeted in the compound exercises, then you don't have to add as many. And so your workouts don't have to be very long. Okay, rate of perceived exertion. So RPE is what that usually stands for, and basically it gives you kind of a gauge, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how much effort to put into the exercise. And so some people will say in their programming, I don't do this with my clients, I just give them a gauge. And I'll explain what that looks like. But basically, rate of perceived exertion is how hard does, like, it gives you a range of how much effort to put into the exercise. So some people in certain programs will have that, and it'll kind of give you a good gauge of how much effort to put in. So like if it's an 8, it's like you're leaving about probably 1 to 2 reps in the tank so that you're not going to failure. If it's a 10, it's like you're going to all out failure. If it's a 1, it's like this is super easy, barely any effort kind of thing. And then DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. So usually when you start strength training, depending on the efforts, the first day you'll be a little sore, but it's usually that second day when you feel like the most sore. And so that's what DOMS stands for, basically. Periodization. Periodization is planned phases of training. And so this is what I do with all my clients. Basically, every 4 weeks, we have a specific block and focus that we're focusing on. And what that does is it allows us to put a lot of effort into something. And then it allows us, or it prevents our body from plateauing, because every 4 weeks we're changing the stimulus, we're changing the adaptation we're trying to elicit, which continues to allow the body to progress. Deload is a light training week. Depending on the client, if they're super consistent, then I'll program that in, and it'll just be like, hey, we're just taking it easy. So maybe half the sets that you'd usually do, maybe it's less training days and more active recovery. But yeah, so it's just basically taking a light week off of training. And this is like with athletes, this is really common. Usually athletes will do this taper, and taper is like basically a deload week before the big event or contest, so their body's not overly taxed and it has enough energy to perform at optimal outputs. So when I used to swim in high school, we would do this. And actually in college too, for water polo, we'd have like the week before or even the day before a game. It wasn't super intense. It was just like practicing the drills, getting in, doing some nice, easy laps, getting some blood flowing into the muscles to help us recover and be optimal for that game the next day. And a PR is a personal record. So basically, usually people say, what's your 1RM or what's your PR? And it's like, basically, what's your 1 rep max for this lift? But personal record doesn't have to be a 1 rep max. It could be like you just did a new weight for an exercise. So like, let's say you do 10 sets of bench press at 80 pounds and this week you did 85 pounds. That's a personal record if you've never done that before. And that's what I like to focus on with my clients. Like, are you getting stronger? Are you creating new records week over week? That's the key. So anyway, if there's anything I did not define or anything you're still confused about, just let me know. I'd be happy to help or elaborate on it more. Hopefully this is helpful if you're just diving into the fitness space or trying to learn. And if it's more confusing, also let me know. I'm going to probably make a cheat sheet for my clients in case I use any of these terms or they see these online, so they just have more information and they can better navigate that. So just shoot me a message if you'd like that, and I can send that your way as well. Anyway, thank you for listening. If this was helpful at all to you, please drop a comment and let me know what you learned, and share it. Share it with a friend who you know is confused by the crazy information out there, or just is new to lifting and nutrition and wants to learn the weird terms that are out there so they can better understand when fitness coaches like me forget that most people don't use these terms on a regular basis, and we're so used to using them that we just use them all the time. So anyway, thank you for listening. And if there are any other terms that I did not define that you're confused about, just shoot me a message. And I will catch you on the next one. Thank you for listening. Hope you have a great day. See ya.